Hey everybody, welcome to Fast News from Kahn Media. I'm Dan Kahn. We're doing something a little bit different this week. As you know, normally I present different tips, pieces of business advice, articles, and the latest news from the business world. Well, this week we decided to catch up with different contacts around the automotive industry, specifically the automotive aftermarket, and find out from these business leaders what they're currently doing, what they've been dealing with the last 3 or 4 months, find out about their sales and their distribution wins and challenges, what they're looking at for the remainder of the year. We talked about things like the SEMA Show, what their expectations are for 2021, and how they're dealing with things like distribution, customer relations, even challenges with employees. It was a really great conversation. We have people from motorsports and racing, car builders, parts manufacturers, event promoters. It was a really great panel. I had a really good time recording it. I learned a lot, and I think you'll like it too. So enjoy this panel discussion, and like always, if you like our content, please hit subscribe on YouTube and check out the show notes for links to more content. Thanks and have a great week. So welcome to our first roundtable. This is an automotive aftermarket and kind of hot rod and parts community roundtable. We haven't done one of these before, so this is our first attempt. So please bear with us as we kind of figure this out. But basically, we wanted to get different voices from the industry to talk about sort of what they're doing, how they're doing it, and kind of what their perspective is on business right now during this crazy year of 2020. So with us this roundtable, we have kind of going around the room. We have Johnson Barrick with Aeromotive. He's the VP of Sales and Marketing. So hi, Johnson. Thank you for joining us. We have Andrew Ebel with Goodguys. He's the COO of the Goodguys Riding Customer Association. So thank you for joining us, Andrew. We have Melanie White, who is the president of Hellwig Products. Thanks for joining us, Mel. We have Nancy Ring, who is the head of finance and business at Ringbrothers. And obviously everyone knows them as a car builder, but they're also a big manufacturer. So thanks for joining us, Nancy. And we have Rick Love, who's the EVP of Vintage Air. Thanks for joining us, Rick.
I'm just impressed that the financial manager there are the Ringbrothers. I like that title.
Somebody's got to keep them in line.
You're the brains of the operation, right?
I don't know about that,
cool.
But someone's got to keep them going in the same direction.
Well, yeah, herding cats.
Yes.
Well, thank you all for joining us. I know everyone's been busy lately, and we'll talk about that. So first of all, I guess just to get started, let's just kind of go around the room. Can each of you guys give us a quick rundown on basically your business and what your business model is? We can start with Johnson, just go around if that works.
Sure. So we're a manufacturer of fuel system components that focuses on customer service, reliability, and innovation. We primarily sell through distribution through 6 continents, but we also sell direct through the consumer as well. We focus on not me too products, but solving problems, and that's kind of what Aeromotive is all about.
It's fair to say your roots are in the race market, right?
Yep, drag racing is what our owner, Steve Matusik, kind of does. That's what he lives, but we have a little bit of everything from marine to street to off-road. Sometimes we get pigeonholed in that drag racing market, but that's really not the case. We have something for kind of everybody.
And where do you do most of your manufacturing?
Here in Lenexa, Kansas. We also own Waterman Racing Components that we have a location in Indianapolis, but also in Charlotte, North Carolina, but everything's here in the USA.
Cool. Very good. Thanks, Johnson. Andrew, can you give us the rundown?
Sure. So Goodguys, we're a event production company. We put on car shows throughout the country, as you guys know, and we also produce media. We've got a couple of websites. We've got a magazine that we produce 12 times annually, and we kind of look at ourselves as sort of just a little bit of a cornerstone of what we do here, and kind of the opportunity we kind of put on the shows where everybody comes to see the products and hang out and see the latest trends and hang out with their friends, and we feel like we're the lucky ones in our industry. We think we have the most fun. That's what we say.
I agree. Thank you. Mel?
Yeah, so our company, Hellwig Products, we manufacture suspension products, load and sway control. We serve an OE market, private label, and also just the aftermarket. We manufacture here in Visalia, California. We're US made, US sourced, and fourth generation, so family owned still.
Super cool. How old is the company?
We're 74, so we have our big 75 next year.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you were an OEM tier 1 too, also, right? Or tier 1 also, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
We could talk about that in a little bit. Nancy.
Well, it looks like we're a little different than everybody else. So we have a collision shop. We build custom cars, and then we manufacture aftermarket automotive parts for kind of the muscle car world. And we do everything in-house. We've only been in business for 25 years. So I feel like a baby, Melanie, compared to 75. But we have some distribution. Most of our sales are online, but we do sell through Summit and Motor State and a few other distributors like that.
Great. Thanks, Nance. Rick.
Vintage Airs, well, I guess we're not near like Hellwig. This is our 44th year. So we manufacture and distribute performance aftermarket automotive air conditioning systems and components. We also do some tier 1 supplying to the OEMs as well, but primarily our distribution is through dealers and distributors, warehouses, small mom and pop shops and everything like that. We do some retail sales, nothing online, still doing things the old fashioned way by the telephone.
And you're a tier 1 for like a little economy car, right?
Yeah, the Ford GT, the little economy Ford GT and a couple others, but yeah.
That's super cool. Thanks, Rick. Okay, so I guess the first question is an easy one. And we can, again, if anyone has burning desire to go first, cool, we can go around the room, but can you just share with us kind of, we already kind of talked loosely where everyone's based, but kind of talk about where you are in the country and how have the last 4 months been? Are you open? Have you been open the whole time? Did you have to shut down at all? Is everyone working from home or from the shop? Kind of what's the status, I guess, is the question.
Well, I'll go if nobody's going to. We're in San Antonio, so we've been fortunate enough to not have to shut down at all. Back in mid-March when this kind of hit initially, we tried to be as proactive as we could be. We went almost immediately, we split our production into 2 shifts. We've got an early shift from 5 to 1:30, and then we do a 2 to 10. So we did that to try to generate some more space between our employees and keep people separated. At that point, all of our sales and tech people also moved back home and started working remotely. So we just had kind of a skeleton crew here. We're outside the city limits of San Antonio, fortunately, for many reasons. But when San Antonio instituted their hard lockdown, we were fortunate enough that we are considered an essential business because of our OEM supply and our aftermarket supply. So we were able to continue to operate with our employees. So we haven't lost any time in that respect. We instituted real early as well everything we could think of to try to make our people as safe as we could be. We're checking temperatures before they hit the door and after lunch, and then usually another time randomly during the day. We check everybody's temperatures, and we're real strong on the wellness questions. We designed and manufactured our own little clear face shields, and we've given our employees a choice when they're in the workplace of either wearing a face shield or a mask while they're there. So again, just trying to do everything we can to try to keep safe. We haven't at this point, fortunately, had, knock on wood, had any positive cases. We've had some people out for testing that have been exposed supposedly in other places, but so far everybody's tested negative. So that's good.
Great. Thanks, Rick. That's cool about the PPE.
Yeah.
What
I
about you,
know,
Mel?
so we did something similar to Rick right in the beginning. We went to, we actually had 3 different shifts. No one could enter the building until everyone had cleared the building, and we were really strict on that. We did that for a short time because it just wasn't that effective. So we moved back all to 1 shift, but we're also an essential business, so we've been running the whole time. But in California, we just have had like different things announced. Like it just seems like every week it was like we were getting, and I'm sure it's like that everywhere, right? But we were like you know, you'd be like, okay, we figured out this course, we're headed down this course, and then you'd like get hit by a bus and you're like, okay, we're gonna go down this way. So you know, we've been trying to be as proactive as possible, but we've unfortunately kind of just had to react to the shifts here. And so right now, you know, we have 3 different start times. So our first crew comes at 4 in the morning. And so it's a way to like separate breaks and separate employees like clocking in and things like that. So, and at one time, like all of our executive team was going to look for hand sanitizer because we couldn't find any. And the one that was shipped, they turned it around sometime. It was like, you know, the ridiculous things that we've been challenged with during this time. And then also all of anyone that could work from home has been asked to work from home. So we're really limiting it. I'm here in the office today, but I'm not in the office very often just because of that too, because if I can work from home, I'm gonna do it because it's a numbers game. So we're really limiting those numbers.
Cool. Thanks, Mel. That's good info. Johnson, how about you? What's going on in Kansas?
Yeah, so we're Kansas City, Kansas, or the suburbs of it. We stayed open the whole time, just like you guys, as an essential business. We locked the front door. We only have about 22 employees here in Kansas City. And so we really just, anybody who could work from home, worked from home whenever they could. If you had to be here, we just kind of took the precautions, just like everybody else. It'll be interesting to see. They're tightening restrictions like a lot of places. If you go in the public, you have to wear a mask now. So we have gone back to locking the door. We don't get much walk-through traffic, but just really, you know, keep everybody here safe and keep moving. Nobody with the coronavirus tested positive yet. So again, knock on wood, just like Rick said. And but yeah, business as usual, kind of in this weird world.
Cool. Okay. And so now I'm curious, you know, Nancy, you guys are in a pretty small town. Tell us what you're going through.
Right. Well, we're in a town in Spring Green, Wisconsin that only has 1,400 people. So it feels relatively normal with the exception of seeing some people with masks. We don't believe masks are healthy. So I'm going to be the odd man out and just put it out there. We think that they're unhealthy for you. So we don't, and we don't have a lot of foot traffic. We do for our collision business, but that's not every single day, but we'll get people in and out of the shop. And if they wear masks, that's fine. But we don't. We just do business as normal, and everybody's been fine. We don't know anybody that's had COVID. So it's a different, we're operating a little differently.
Good. Okay. And Andrew, you're right outside the Bay Area. So what's going on there? How's that been?
It's not like Wisconsin, I'll tell you that much. You know, our whole experience actually began when we were down in Texas for our spring Lone Star Nationals event. You know, we happened to be down there that weekend. We got the first day of the show open. I think it was the 13th of March, whatever. And then literally we got shut down the next day, and we got back on Monday as a team. I think our first full day back in the office was that Tuesday. And at that point we got the shelter in place. And so, you know, the shelter in place out here took a long time. And so because we're not deemed an essential business, you know, we're a producer, a promoter, you know, technically our office has not been open. So I would say it's casually open right now. So if you need to come in and, you know, do something that you can only do in the office, we're doing that. But really most people we've gotten really good at working from home. You know, we're really tight with Skype now and Zoom, and just like most people. But as we're now heading into the summer, and of course, many of you know, we did our first event this last weekend in Des Moines. As the events become more of a reality for us, you know, we have had a few more people in the office. And so what we're doing is implementing what you'd expect here in California, which is, you know, face coverings when you come into the office. And, you know, we finally got our hands on a bunch of, you know, disinfectant wipes and all the stuff that, you know, Melanie brought up earlier. It was really hard to find that stuff up here. So we can now effectively at least provide a clean environment in our office, but we're still challenging everybody to really work from home unless they absolutely have to. I come into the office 2 or 3 days a week just to get a little bit of normalcy, but shut my office door and I have my mask with me and all that. So it's not business as usual, but we're getting back to a little bit closer to that. I don't think we really anticipate, because where we live here in the Bay Area, we actually live in Alameda County, which has been one of the more conservative counties in California, which is funny to say. But we don't really see our office opening up, quite frankly, full doors until probably early part of next year. So we're just going to kind of settle in and do the safe thing and see what happens, and just hope for, some doors to open a little bit more as we go into the fall.
Andrew, I just want to mention, I grew up in Pleasanton. I graduated at Amador, and my dad's office is right next door to your guys' office. So.
I know, we've talked about that. Yeah. It's a strange time out here. I definitely feel like, probably with most everybody, maybe with the exception of Dan, I think, and maybe Melanie, I don't know. It's a strange time. Going to Des Moines last weekend was absolutely eye-opening, surreal, because you honestly, if you would have landed there and you didn't know what was going on, you would have thought that it was just normal, with the exception of maybe the servers at the restaurant wearing a mask. That was about it. So it was like a step back in time last weekend. It was nice.
So let's talk about that. I'm going to jump out of order a little bit with some of these questions, but since you brought it up, I think the whole industry was kind of keeping their eyes on you guys, saying, okay, pretty much everything has been canceled. Monterey Car Week is canceled. All the major shows have been canceled. So your show last weekend, I think, was probably the first major car show in the country. What'd you do to prep for it? How'd it go? How did your vendors feel? How did the spectators feel? Well, kind of give us the rundown. What was it like?
Wow, it's a really good question. I'll try and keep it really brief. The one thing I want to make really clear, it wasn't just our industry either. I've been in the event and promotion business now for 25 years. I came out of sports and entertainment, so concert promotion, sports, all that kind of good stuff. And I can't tell you how many people I had outside the automotive industry who are event producers call me to ask me kind of the same question, because promoters in general across the country are in the same boat we are, right? But the first part of that is that it really started. I mean, we kind of realized when we got the first shelter in place here in California, I think we were like everybody, where we thought it was going to be just, a few weeks or whatever have you, we'll kind of be back to normal. After about 2 or 3 weeks, we started realizing that wasn't going to be the case. And we knew that going back to doing events the way that we had done them in the past was not going to be a reality. So, Harry Davies on our he's our VP of event operations. And I'm sure many of you know him. Him and I really worked together very closely early on with his team on developing a program called the Goodguys Cares program. And we didn't know a lot. There wasn't a lot of information being put out by the government, the health department, or anything, but we were kind of taking this like a practical approach on it, a common sense approach on what we could expect at our shows. So, that really began probably the very first part of April. As we started getting into, the latter part of April, May, June, at that point, we still had no clarity on our events, but we were continuing to take, practical concept and ideas that we were seeing in the environment that we were hanging out in, whether it was going to the grocery stores, whether it was, going to pick up food from a local restaurant, whatever have you. We could see the roadmap. You had to, at least here in California, you could see that roadmap. You could see that there was going to be some significant changes. And so we started building that program. And then as soon as you started seeing more information come out from the CDC, and you started seeing more information come out from the local markets in which our events were going to be produced, it really helped us tighten that down. So when we say we had hundreds of meetings on the safety and health guidelines that we were going to implement for our events and for our, even for our office, it might even be more than that. I mean, we were having daily meetings and sometimes more than that. And so when we got the approval to move forward in Des Moines, we felt very well prepared. We had worked with the venue, we had worked with the state. We had the approvals that we needed to move forward from the governor and from the health department and from, the county of, I think it's Polk County out there. So we definitely had everything in line. But I would tell you that, even as prepared as you can be in that type of an environment, there's things that you learn from the minute you get there that we had to implement. And so,
right.
At the event level, like I said, I think we were very well prepared. I think we learned a lot about what we need to do to even make more improvements as we move forward. But I definitely feel like we did what we needed to do to get that event off and to make it as healthy and safe as it possibly can. I think one of the unique characteristics of our events, as you guys all know, is that a high percentage of it is outdoors. And we do them in large, venues, 100-acre, 250-acre venues. I think Des Moines is 290 acres. I can tell you that at no point personally did I feel nervous, that I feel, like my health was at risk. Of course, our staff was wearing masks the entire time. So you didn't see any Goodguys staff members without a mask on. But the venue requirements and the state requirements did not dictate face coverings unless you went into a building. So we enforced that. We did not get, I would say, very minimal feedback or backlash. Most people were very supportive of it. And we pulled it off. I'll tell you that, it was not our normal sized event like you people have become accustomed to in Des Moines. But it was a healthy event and it was nice to get back. And I can tell you that our industry, from the vendors that were there, the partners and sponsors that were there, the attendees, very appreciative, very happy, very thankful that we were able to pull this off. And so we feel very good about it, but we're going to continue to get better at it as well and do more to make sure that we can continue on this path. And I think the last thing to say is that we also understand it's very important for us to do because we're setting the tone for other promoters, right? Whether you're, Autoramas, it doesn't matter, Vanier, all these guys, we need to work together on this and we need to do it right. So I think we've set the tone for that moving forward.
That's good intel. Thank you. And did you feel like, so it sounds like the spectators were happy to be there. Were the vendors all happy and comfortable as well? Any major changes from that perspective?
I think the vendors, well, I should say the sponsors, the partners, were all very, very happy to be there. We absolutely had some companies that did not participate for corporate, responsibility. They made their own decision on that. And that was, we understand that. There's nothing we can do about that, and we respect that decision. But I would say that, I can tell you this, is that the partners that we did have there, they had some phenomenal weekends. I talked to a couple of them, and people were in a spending mode out there, which was a really nice thing for everybody to hear. We had heard a lot about, online sales for a lot of companies being very strong throughout this period. And I think that extension happened at our show. So I think overall, I think most people were really pleased with it.
Well, Andrew, you just teed up the next question beautifully, so thanks. So for our manufacturing, we're like a team here. So for our manufacturing companies that are on the call, which is quite a few of you guys, what went through your mind, and what did your management team, what did you do when this thing first hit? Kind of what were your initial moves to try and prepare for a pretty big question mark? And then what had kind of panned out? So obviously, March was sort of the start of this thing in this country, and everybody was pretty freaked out. And then I think a lot of us were actually surprised how the automotive aftermarket sort of responded. So can you kind of walk us through what your initial reactions were, and then what sort of happened over the next couple months after that?
I can jump in. We were actually at a point of early in the year planning an expansion and adding to our capabilities for manufacturing. But when this all hit, we instantly, retreated back and kind of circled the wagons and cut back and lowered our inventory projections, just expecting sales to take a big hit, especially when they started closing things down. But within a matter of weeks, the reaction was the opposite. Everything started flying off of our shelves. Our distributors needed more inventory. We were selling. Our sales are up significantly online and just by phone as well. So, and the phone calls for the custom builds were off the hook. And the people, we have basketball players, we have just people who were sitting home not able to spend their money looking for things to do, and came across a lot of our marketing materials out there. Thank you, Dan. And it seemed to institute a lot of activity for us. So we've been busier than ever. We've increased all of our production. We've added a second shift. We aren't prepared to invest in building expansion because we're not confident that what's going to happen next year. That when all the free money goes away and reality hits, that the jobs that people used to have aren't still there. I don't know. It just we're just going to find more ways to be just productive and keep our bottom line as high as it can be and get what we can, and we'll reevaluate the expansion next year.
Thanks, Nancy. Yeah, that's interesting. And I think that cautiously optimistic approach is pretty common right now. Rick, what's going on with you guys?
I think similar to Nancy, I think we all went through that when it first, I got to say, I was one of the guys in the beginning. I thought in a couple of 3 weeks, this was going to be beyond us and we'd be kind of getting back to things as normal. We were at the Goodguys event in Fort Worth when, I mean, Friday was basically a washout with heavy rain. And then the Fort Worth mayor came on and said, you know, no big events. And so it was a shutdown. And I think that was the first indicator that things may, especially in Texas, I think, you know, even though there's, I mean, you know, we are, I can't say we're the bastion of liberalism like California is, but I mean, the urban areas are getting more like that all the time. So, you know, but I think that was an eye opener for me. And when we came back, that's when we started really heavily looking at this and things we were pretty quiet for the first week or so. And like Nancy said, we were kind of looking at those same type of things. Boy, April and May and June have been really, really busy. And I mean, right now we've been fighting problems with suppliers trying to get, you know, we get a bunch of raw materials and stuff out of Michigan, and Michigan was a hard shutdown and, you know, with their governor and everything. And so we were fighting some inventory issues with running out of some supplies. And I mean, I hate to say it, our backlogs right now is larger than it's ever been at any time. And some of that's due to the increased sales, others due to the fact, I'll tell you right now, we need to hire about 8 to 10 people in manufacturing. I can't even get people to show up for an interview, let alone be able to hire them. And I think that unemployment benefit the way it is right now is a big factor in that. And so that's kind of some of the struggles we're having. I mean, it's and again, I imagine everybody else is kind of in the same boat in that respect.
Yep. Supply chain has definitely been really disrupted by this whole thing. It's been interesting.
Yeah. You know, my concern, and I'm sure it's shared by everybody, is, you know, we wish we had a crystal ball like Nancy said, but I mean, how many of these increased sales have we just moved some of these sales that we might have had in August or July or August? Have we moved them into, you know, April and May because guys are home and they had some money and they had some time to work on their cars? Is that a movement of these? So we're going to, I mean, are we like a train running across the trestle now over the gorge and all of a sudden we're going to get to the middle and there's no more tracks there? So, I mean, that's a scary thing, all of us being manufacturers, because you're trying to schedule what kind of inventory you're going to have.
Well, and I think too, what's happening is there's really no indicators of, we haven't been through a pandemic before. None of us have.
Right.
So what historical information do we have? We can look at 2008, but that's not, you know, so I find that, you know, yeah, we're going to pull conservative and like I said, circle the wagons, but make hay while you can.
Yeah.
It's where we're at.
Yeah. I could echo a lot of what you guys have said already. You know, but I think ours lasted a little bit longer because a larger percentage of our base is the OEs, and they took it really serious and they shut down. So yeah, the whole month of April kind of felt like crickets. And so we really got a lot more conservative. And then all of a sudden we have this huge bubble. You know, we booked in sales what we did the whole month of April in one day in May. So it was just like, okay, now there's this big rat going through the snake, and it's just not effective to like be able to meet that demand, especially with supply chain issues. You know, all of those things are just, you know, we really want to take care of our customers, and it's frustrating because everyone wants to book the sale right now. Like everyone wants to be able to capture that while it's available, and they're just, you know, we're hitting some hurdles in that.
Melanie, do you guys sell direct to consumers, or are you all distributor?
So we sell through distribution. We do sell on our website. So
You do direct.
Mhm.
Have you seen an increase in your direct sales?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely online sales are just like are booming right now. So
Mhm.
any pattern in that direction, we're seeing an increase because people are at home working on their vehicles. So and then also the RV industry is an industry that we serve, and no one's going to France, right? Like they're not
Right.
they're not traveling overseas. So people are buying RVs, and that's where we can come into play too. So yeah.
RV industry is booming. I've read about that. I think, Dan, you and I talked about that.
Yep.
Rentals and sales. I mean, RV industry is just booming now. You're a big RV guy.
Yeah, it's exploding. And I just saw an article this morning on sort of the boat industry's version of like their trade association. They posted a thing that the marine industry, it's not as reported right now as the RV industry, but they're going through the same thing. They can't get enough inventory to get on dealer lots right now because everything they've got is getting, every boat on every
Pre-sold.
dealer lot is pre-sold, and it's all financed. So that makes me a little nervous,
That's
to be
scary.
honest. It is scary because it's like in a couple hundred days, what's this going to look like? I don't know.
The trickle down effect on the RV though is I'm an RV guy too, and what the terrible part is, so many people are buying RVs. Like you can't get a camp spot in California right now.
No, you can't.
Like it's terrible. I mean, you should see the shelves of the store. If you're an outdoors person in California, if you fish or you hike or you do anything, you can't find fishing gear. You can't find anywhere. So the outdoors is blowing up. Interesting.
Telling you, Wisconsin, everybody. Wisconsin's the place to be.
Probably right.
You keep talking about California. It's cuckoo.
Hey, we're trapped here. Literally, we're trapped
This from
here now.
an
We're not even allowed to travel to
ex-Californian.
certain states.
I'm an ex-Californian, I say that.
Johnson, what's going on with you guys? I know you've had sort of an interesting ride the last few months.
Yeah, we have, and I was going to kind of get everybody's feedback. But so I'll be honest, we were scared shitless when this happened. We were small business. You know, I was actually with our owner when it happened. It was scary. Just kind of, hey, are we going to close? Are we going to stay open? We kind of immediately, and curious what you guys did. We, as a management team, took some pay cuts for about a month. We paused a lot of our marketing for about a month. And April was slow, but we really picked back up. We ramped up, and sounds like everybody, we've done very, very well. Online direct, very, very well. We actually found out that we were very over inventoried. We weren't purchasing very smart. So we're in a pretty good position right now. We've changed a lot of things, learned a lot, but we're in a very good place. And again, everybody's kind of cautiously optimistic. Hopefully this keeps going in the right direction, but we just don't know. But just kind of curious of what you guys do. I mean, with pay cuts or pausing marketing agreements, we were very hesitant in doing that. We really put our faith in Dan and his team because we want to keep the ball rolling in it, and it proved to be a very good and successful choice. But what kind of changes do you make in that terms, if you guys are open to share that?
Well, the one thing we did is we just went to no overtime. We just cut back in that regard, but we didn't do any pay cuts. Of course, as the owners, we're always prepared to go without pay if that happens. And we're small enough like you, we're 22 people. So, we want to keep everybody working. We just got a little smarter. We didn't think marketing was a place to cut because we needed our online sales to keep going. And like I said, ours was more infrastructure or capital expenditures where we didn't want to put money towards.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But I won't lie. Like every day was combing through our pro forma P&L and like looking at things that I could cut that I didn't think were absolutely necessary. Luckily, it wasn't a lot of employees, but some employees did elect to be furloughed during that time. And then we did have to let go of some employees too. So so it's not fun for sure, like looking at areas to cut. But, I think relying on Dan and his team, like we were able to like immediately shift into like do-it-yourself videos. Like they all got rearranged to like the top. That's where we spent ad money, like all of that. We really shifted pretty quickly because we had support there to be able to do it. And we didn't cut the spend, we just spent it very differently than we were going to.
Mel, have you all tried to bring any of those people back that you furloughed?
No, we haven't. Yeah, we haven't at this point. So
You might have a hard time bringing them back with what they're making on furlough.
I just got off a call about that. Yeah, it's a real problem here, and
But that's gonna end the end of the month, though.
it's going to end the end of the month. So
Hopefully.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
But you know, I say that, and one part of me says that because we're having such a hard time hiring people, but then the other side of me says, is this extra money these people are getting at home, is that part of what they're doing, using
they're
buy
using
all
it
our
for
parts?
us. Yeah.
You know? So it's one of these things, geez, yeah, I want this thing to end, but boy, I just wonder, is this actually, you know, if you got a husband and wife at home getting an extra $1,200 a week besides their unemployment, is that car money you're using part of it? I just wonder.
That's car money.
You know, out here in California, that's effectively, what you're getting, if you're getting in California, if you're getting full unemployment plus the extra $600 a week, it's effectively a $70,000 a year job.
Yeah.
So it's hard to go back if you were waiting tables or if you were, making 40 grand, 50 grand manufacturing parts. I mean, that's the reality. Now I know that's different from state to state, of course, but it's a pretty appealing thing if you're, want to take a break for a little bit. But,
but also imagine what you're going to deal with attitude-wise when they come back and they were making more doing nothing.
Right.
And now they actually got to work for less. So I think then there's going to be a whole lot of management issues to contend with, just attitude-wise.
We had several employees asked to be furloughed because friends and relatives were making more money than they were sitting home. And man, that's a difficult situation to be in.
I mean, so many people we know are just hopping in the cars and going to Colorado and doing all the things they've never been able to do before.
Yeah, or working trade jobs. So
right, cash jobs.
Well,
yeah.
Let's talk about the employee thing for a minute, because I think that's interesting, and you guys, a lot of you brought it up, and I'll share with our personal, with my company. We early on, kind of similar to Johnson's story, when the first thing hit, I freaked out, and I started this business in the bottom of the 2008 recession, so I've been there before. But my personal feeling is that this is not a recession, it's a suppression. The recession in 2008, 2009 happened because of a bunch of economic forces that kind of smashed into each other, subprime loans and all that stuff. This is not that. This was like the government basically saying, okay, everybody stay home and don't go out and shut your business down. So I freaked out. We furloughed basically all of our essentially non-essential employees. So all the office and admin support staff, they all were let go. Everyone took a pay cut. I'm proud of my team. They pivoted to work from home on a pay cut, didn't miss a beat. We are fortunate that we've been able to restore most of those pay cuts, which is great. But like with us, there has been some morale challenges because we've now shifted back to working in the office, and I've got several employees who don't want to come back. And maybe it's because they don't think it's safe. Maybe it's because they just liked working from home better. I can't really tell, and you're not really supposed to ask. But that has been a struggle for us, and we're still trying to figure out how to navigate that, especially now the news is blasting away about how the pandemic numbers are going back up, and everyone wants to go home again. And as a manager, I tend to skew towards the conservative side of things, and I feel like if you've got everyone in a building and you can go walk over to someone's desk and ask how they're doing, it's a lot more effective than waiting for a Zoom call. So it's been interesting to sort of figure that out. I'm curious what your experiences have all been on sort of the employee morale and management side of things.
I'll start off and I'll just say we've been very fortunate. We haven't had to make any cuts yet. And that's really what our plan is, hopefully not to. If we can continue to do a couple of events a month or whatever have you, our goal is to really do that. But, we've made cuts in other areas to accommodate that. Our ownership group has been amazing through the whole thing. But, what I would say is this, is that I don't know if we've had morale issues, but I've definitely find myself having to stay on top of this remote working audience a lot more than I have in the past. Losing those hallway conversations and those impromptu little get-togethers, walking in somebody's office and, hey, I just thought of this, we got to get in and do this, blah, blah, blah. I think that's what we're missing more than anything. I think we've been very fortunate to have a great morale, but I think a little bit of that has to do with the fact that we haven't made any cuts to this point. I'm not so sure what it'd been like. I haven't had to go ahead and call somebody back from a furlough yet. But I'd say that's been our biggest struggle. I mean, I find myself, pardon my, I find myself having to be a little bit more of a butthead with people, you know, and get on them a little bit more, you know, on a Zoom call. And I've had more coming to Jesus talks probably the last 2 or 3 months than I probably want to. And I find that, you know, with maybe a fraction of those people that works, the other fraction, it just continues to do the same thing. So I can tell you my position is I can't wait to open the office back up and get people back in.
I've got,
Yeah, I think
we brought half of our sales guys back in and half of our tech guys back in, and not just from a numbers perspective, but I can tell you, I agree with Andrew completely. I mean, of course, I'm an old school guy, but I think you're more efficient at the office. I mean, you got to be really structured and self-motivated to be really effective at home. And like for our sales guys, if they're at home, they can't run to the back and check on something, or they can't, if it's a tech guy, they can't go pull something off the line to check and look at what a guy's talking about or something like that. So, I mean, our people are more effective here. And that's my feeling on it. And Andrew, I know exactly what you're talking about. Exactly.
When I worked from home, when I raised my kids, I worked from home, not here. I was a CFO of a theater, a nonprofit theater. And the amount of information you don't get when you aren't there, you can multitask. You'd be working away on a spreadsheet, doing whatever you got to do, but you're also overhearing all sorts of other stuff going on, and information falls to you in a way that you don't. Otherwise, you have to make the phone call, write an email, or end up on a call, and you don't remember to talk about everything. So the sharing of information is so much freer when you're in office or in your buildings. And plus, we're people. You need to be around people. So
Right.
You get disconnected from what's going on.
You do. And you actually start to get, I want to say you get a little less compassionate when you're not around them. So
Very much. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, I think we actually got closer. A lot of times sales is heading one way, engineering is the other, and purchasing is another. I feel like we all kind of had a common goal that we wanted to get through it together. And we kind of started having a little more of appreciation for each other and started kind of going on the same page and going, look, it's tough times. We don't know what's going to happen, but we got to start working together, communicating more, and, you know, we got to get through it together. And so it's been actually a positive. There's a lot of obviously negative in the world, but that's been a big positive here internally.
Yeah, I'll say that too. You know, we're working from home, working remote. A lot of management is, but we take different days to come in the office. And, you know, what we're doing differently is like our first shift, the first huddle starts at 5 o'clock in the morning, and we each take a day that we come in and we're here, we're available for questions, we share any information. So I'm actually like closer. I'm looking at my employees in the eyes and like, how are you guys doing? Like, I've never been like this connected and never thought about them more than like right now, just through this whole pandemic, because, you know, their health is number one. We have a lot of customers to serve. We all need to work together. And I can't say enough for like how my team has like come together during this time. And I think one of the things in the beginning that just someone else had shared with me, that when we go through challenging times as leaders, the more that we can communicate and be available to be able to communicate and not shy away from the questions, the tough ones, the better off we'll be, and the more at ease everyone will be as well. So, you know, there's plenty of hard questions that get asked when I'm here at 5 o'clock and maybe not ready to answer those, but it's been well worth it to be here.
That's great, Mo. Good intel. Thank you. So let's talk briefly about customers, and I'm going to bring up the hot button topic. So you know, Mel, you talked about serving customers, and obviously they're the reason we're all in business. What stories do you guys have to share? I mean, obviously it sounds like everyone's had a pretty good couple of months, you know, May and June anyway. do you think customers are going to keep spending? How's their attitude been? If there's wait times because of back orders or supply chain issues, have they been patient or do they get angry? What's that been like?
It's rough.
Yeah.
Rough. People want to book the sale, right? Like, consumers are opening their wallets, and when you cannot, when you're delayed at all, it is so flippin' painful. And I think all of us are somewhat delayed, and it's painful. It's painful at every level. And we want to be able to take care of that consumer. So, yeah. I don't know what else to say than it's painful.
Our customers have been great. Our customers have been really, maybe because it's the end users so much, they've all been patient that if our dealer doesn't have it, we have it, or they don't even mind waiting. I think everyone's just kind of like, what are you going to do about it? They've been really gracious. So we've had a good response that way. Same with our builders, the owners of our cars. They've all been good, because we did run into some supply chain issues on that front, and they've all been really good. So I feel lucky for that, really do. And they seem to be thankful that we're here. They're like, oh, you're there. Thank you. I'm so glad I can talk to somebody. And so we try to have fun with them, and they like that kind of play when we're on the phone with them and enjoying their time. No one's in a rush to get off. So it's good.
No, I agree. I think 95% of our direct distributors have been great. They've been calm, collective during this patient. The consumer, for the most part, like you said, Nancy, has been really pleasant. I mean, they understand. They're just like, you're open. Okay, good. It's okay that there's a longer lead time. It's interesting. They're really, small businesses. I feel like people really want to help small businesses right now. American-made companies. I got many comments from people. I mean, I referred to somebody to Summit Racing the other day, and they go, okay, so you're okay with me going to buy it through them? It's like, Summit Racing, like, do you know who they are? And they're like, well, it's your product though, right? And so people are cautious, and they want to help you. They want to give you the sale during this, is what we found. And so it's different, but it's been a fun time.
Mm-hmm.
I think Johnson mentioned something that we're seeing, or that I'm seeing a lot of here. And, we've only been in the big warehouses. We kind of built our business on the smaller shops, the mom and pops and the smaller distributors. And that was kind of our backbone for many, many years. Just the last 20 years or so, we've gotten more of the warehouse. But I really think this whole pandemic and these people's buying experiences through this, I think the big warehouses are going to be the big benefactors from this. The guys that have, like, now, I hate to say it right now, for some of our stuff, we're quoting 2 to 3 week lead times. And anybody, the smaller distributors, smaller dealers that are having to call us and do a drop ship, which we do a lot of, you're telling a customer 2 to 3 weeks plus shipping time. Well, the larger warehouses have this stuff in stock. They have it in inventory. And for that reason, they're gaining more market share. A lot of these mid to smaller guys, I think, are going to end up suffering because of all this. I'm seeing it in the numbers that I look at every month. Are y'all seeing that on your end?
Mm-hmm.
Not so much, but are you seeing your distributors wanting more incentive, wanting you to lower or increase your discounts with them?
Boy, I'm a bad guy on that, because we don't have any more to give. I mean, like y'all, I mean, heck, look what we've all had to
we've
spend.
Had to say no, but they're certainly asking.
They're still asking. I've been married a long time, like you, Nancy. My wife has no problem at all telling me no for about anything. So I've kind of learned from her. These guys can ask all day long. I don't have a problem saying no anymore.
Nancy, we've been asked a lot. Our stand has been kind of, hey, we'll work with you when we can, but we do want some extra marketing, or, hey, if we do give you this, what can we get out of this from you guys? Can you do an extra email blast? Let's make sure if we're going to give something, we're going to get something as well. And they've seemed very open to do that, and that's been successful. But like you said, they're asking for sure.
And what do you think would happen if you said no, that you can't go anymore?
I do it all the time.
Yeah, you typically get the same order or same thing that they ask about. Their boss is
You're just so nice.
They know the smile.
I'm like, Rick, no.
I'll tell
Can't do
you,
that.
one thing I try to give something when I say no too. So one thing we've tried to do through this is try to recognize the fact that especially the guys that are willing to step up and stock a lot of inventory, when we sell direct, our direct sales are shrinking every year, unfortunately, in a lot of ways. But I also kind of committed to these dealers and stuff that we won't do any sales. I mean, we don't do any sales. If somebody buys from us, they're going to pay retail price. I got to charge them tax. I got to charge them shipping, So I can't give you any more of a discount because we've increased our expenses through this. I mean, think what we've all spent on sanitizer and all the other stuff we've increased our expenses on and everything. So really there's nothing else to give, but I'm also trying to be fair to the people that I think are stepping up and trying to stock more of our inventory and do all of that. So I'm trying to say, look, I'm not saying I'm not going to sell retail, but I'm not going to try to steal from you either. Try to compete.
We actually are seeing more drop shipment. So, we bear that burden when we have to drop ship. We deal with all their tech calls.
Yep.
They can't answer one question on our products. We deal with the returns and the exchanges. They sell wrong parts. So that's been our position for not going with any additional discounts, is because we're bearing so much more burden, and they aren't carrying the inventories. Ours are not. Our Summit and those guys are not carrying the inventory that they used to. So, and they're pushing more of it through drop shipment. So that's been our position for not, I tease when I'm saying no, being harsh like that. We're not that way really face to face with them. But in the end, the answer is we still don't give any more discount, but they're trying.
Yeah.
Nancy, when are you guys going to say, we've been seeing dropship numbers go up? When are you going to say no? Or when are you going to put a fee on those drop ships? Or is that going to happen?
We haven't yet. So I don't know. I mean, we ask ourselves that all the time. We don't have an answer for it. We just keep putting up with that. But at the same time, when they want their 3% for co-op advertising, or they want 3% early pay, we don't need the cash flow. We don't need that. I've got Dan. My money is much more better spent with him and Russell. Thanks. Than with who I don't know what those guys are doing when I give them 3%. 3%'s a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd much rather have that profit and do something with our product development and use that more money towards our employees than give it to a company that I don't know what they're doing with it. So
let me pivot this a little bit, because I want to ask a question. I'm curious, because we have sort of an interesting group here. I have a personal philosophy that I've had for most of my adult life, that I always try and buy American whenever I can. And sometimes that's fairly straightforward. And to be honest, sometimes it's pretty hard. Try shopping for furniture or something, and it gets pretty challenging. You guys, every manufacturer on this call is either primarily or entirely producing in this country. Are you hearing feedback from consumers that during all of this, especially with what's kind of been happening with COVID and the economy, are you hearing more from your customers that they put a value on products that are made in America, or not so much?
Absolutely. For us.
That's good.
Yeah, we even had one of our bigger customers ask kind of like, hey, we do kind of our knockoff fuel system components, but would you guys be interested in private labeling something? Because we've kind of seen a hit to that line, to where we at least have the Aeromotive name behind it, with kind of a buy Aeromotive private label for them. And so that was interesting to hear that their kind of Chinese knockoffs were taking a hit, and they were looking to kind of primarily American-made products. So that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, we deal with a lot of knockoffs too. We deal with a lot of knockoffs too, and I'm actually kind of loving this, that it's going all American here, because now we don't have to. We still design patent. We can't utility patent, but we design patent. But that's a headache. You want to talk about pain in the ass?
And expensive.
Yeah, it just takes forever. I mean, we have stuff that's been out there for 3 years that's not done. It's just design patent. It's not even utility. So yeah.
Anyone's if you've been to the SEMA banquet, you know how Johnson's boss feels about Chinese knockoffs.
Yeah.
So,
He's not allowed on stage anymore either. So.
Yeah.
Well, I just, it was unintentional, but since I said the word SEMA, let's talk about it. This is the, I think the big question mark right now. So, and full disclosure, Melanie and I are both on the SEMA board. But I think we could still have an open dialogue. What's everyone's thoughts? And Andrew, I'm curious, as an events guy, kind of what's your thoughts too? Because right now the position is show's on. They're working with Clark County. They're working with the state. We're kind of waiting to hear the final details on what sort of the social distancing and mask and all that stuff is. But that's a big investment for a lot of companies, including all of you and including me. So what are you guys thinking about the show this year?
Well, from an event promoter standpoint, it's a hard one for me. I think it's an uphill road. I know that they're being very, bullish right now, which they should be. That's what you want to be doing. But they're also prepared. I think that there's a lot of different elements that go into this. But I think the one that jumps out at me the most, that's probably as a promoter would concern me the most, is just the amount of out-of-country travelers that go to SEMA or Apex,
Yes. Right?
Like, that's why when you brought up Apex earlier, I was kind of like, that to me, at least perceptually, that's always been a very international show, right? So the ability to get here for that show and to put that on it's just, okay, that's a challenge. So that's probably the thing that jumps into my mind the most. I think the other one is that, you brought up the psychology. Well, the psychology of it was brought up a little earlier. Nancy had brought up the point of if you have to wear a face covering, you may not go. I think there's plenty of places in the country where that's the norm and that won't be a deterrent. But I do think that there are quite a few people out there that they're going to take that opinion with them and they're going to make their decision based on that. So the fact of the matter is, it's an indoor show with a lot of international travelers. No matter what, I have to imagine that SEMA is anticipating quite a drop-off on the booths. I know a lot of companies are making internal decisions to not send their employees right now into scenarios like that. We're experiencing that at our events where, we just have some people that just have made the decision that right now is not the right time. And the last part about it is, you look at it from a timing perspective and, the anticipation is that if we get into November, that this thing's probably going to potentially spike up again a little bit. So there's just a lot of optics. There's a lot of things to consider. I can tell you our point of view right now is we're ready to support SEMA. How can we as an event promoter not support SEMA? So, we've done our booth space selection. We're planning on being there with our normal booth and, our sales team, we're having our, our internal meetings right now to get ready. But, I still think there's a long time right now between here and SEMA. So it'll be interesting to see how things develop. I know one of the big telltale signs is they've taken away the penalty for cancellation until now, I think September 1st, right? So that's a big telltale sign that even SEMA's kind of going, okay, it used to be you'd lock in your booth, you had 24 hours to cancel without penalty, right? Now they're giving you till September. So that tells you a little bit about where we're at. But yeah, it's a challenge. I feel for SEMA because we're in that same boat. It's hard enough to produce a show, and now to do it during COVID. I'm calling it COVID 2020 because I think it's funnier. I think it's a challenge, but we'll be prepared to support them. It's what we do for a living. It's a major part of our industry, and we believe in it. And we're going to do everything we possibly can to help support SEMA.
Thanks, Andrew. That's good perspective. Anyone else want to talk about the show?
Well, we're moving forward as is. I'm sorry if I didn't mean to cut off.
No, you're good.
I said we're moving forward as though it's a go. It will be the only show we end up attending this year, and it is our biggest. We call it our Super Bowl. It's where we launch all of our cars are debuted. It's marketing is our biggest marketing tool that we have. So
and not to interrupt, but you basically won
coming.
SEMA, right? So last year SEMA was you had a good show last year. You guys won pretty much.
Yeah,
everything.
we had it. Yeah, but it just, even if it does go, so many of the people that we know in the industry, some of our major sponsors have pulled out already, and one as of yesterday. So that's starting to give us a little pause, and we're starting to think about, okay, what if what if? So how are we going to still use this? We've got these amazing builds that we're going to be debuting. They're huge. And one of them's been, they're huge. They're huge for us. And so we don't want to miss that, not only for ourselves, but also for our owners. And we have new products being launched. So, we're looking at the virtual ideas and how we can do this. And, from a production company, using Dan's team, what are we going to do? Because I don't know. I think it's going to be a really weird experience. But we went to Saudi, so you can't get any weirder than that. I figure if we can go do that, if we were brave enough to go to Riyadh and do that whole show, and we can do this. I mean, we're not worried about COVID. None of us are worried about getting sick. None of us feel like that's an issue. That's just where we stand. So that's not our concern. It's really it's eerie. Even here in Wisconsin, that's as normal as it can be with the COVID stuff. You go to Madison, it's eerie. Things are shut down. Some of that is the rioting, but there's just such an eeriness about this whole thing. So you hate to go drop this massive amount of money and have a strange experience when maybe you can spend that same amount or even less and get as much reach, because that's what it's about for us, is reach. We love the connecting, hanging out with Rick, and we just love all that kind of stuff, but it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So that part, the social side, is going to be really dampened down. So we're still planning ahead, though. With all that said, we're still going forward as is for now.
Yeah. I think Nancy, though.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. You have a plan B. Like, you're working out some plan B, and I think, we all have to, I'll just say, as a company, we are prepared to have a plan B, another option. And I'll just say, in California, with all of the different, COVID is now a workers' comp case. It's a OSHA reportable event.
Really?
And I don't know if so in other states, I'm not sure if that's the case. So it just becomes really risky to
I didn't know that.
decide to send, anyone from our team. So
It's a workers' comp thing there now?
Yes. If you send them into an event, you're basically putting them in harm's way, right? So that's exactly.
But they could have got it at the parking garage.
Right.
Right. It's just insane.
Yeah, they could have gotten it at the grocery store, but if we're asking them to travel or to do anything, it can become that. So, and it
puts a huge burden
wherever
on the
they
employer.
come in contact. Yeah, it's an OSHA reportable event. Not that there's going to be anything from that, but
There will be.
So so there's a lot of risk. And then what's the reward? I think the reward is, like, there has a lot of potential. Potentially a lot of people aren't going to show up, and the only ones that are going to show up are going to be super serious. So, like, I don't want to leave those people there. The super serious crowd that wants to be there and wants to buy parts, and we potentially can't be there for other risks. So it's, as a business owner, it's a lot of it's a tough decision to kind of.
So when do you guys think SEMA will make a final decision? Because they've got to be. You guys have to be having these back, behind the scene conversations as to when do we say we can't do this? Because as you get all your big people pulling out, I guess if Ford and Chevy stay in, then it's probably a go. But if those guys start to do the corporate policy, they don't want to put their employees in harm's way, then what? When will you guys let everybody know?
Well, we have to before September 1. So it would be sometime in August. I mean, I will say, and I'll link to it in the newsletter this week, that Apex video was the best, most articulate and transparent thing I've seen. And obviously Apex is a different show than SEMA. It happens at the same time. But that video I thought was really good, because they basically broke it down and said, here's our policy. Here's how this is going to work. Here's, both from, they showed video content from the host hotels, from the convention center, from their own team. And they really explained in detail, like, they're going to have temperature scanning equipment at the entry points to the convention center, which is a little George Orwell. But if you go through and you're 100 degrees when you walk through their scanner, they're going to pull you aside and have a conversation with you to make sure you're not sick. So at least it's some information to know kind of where they're doing, how they're doing things. I think with SEMA, I talked to Chris Kirsting this morning, and I'm hopeful that we're going to get similar information to that soon. And that will, I think, hopefully calm some people down and at least allow people to make a more informed decision.
Well, one thing I'd throw in there too, that SEMA's got to be sitting around looking at what's going on too with some of the major sporting events right now. That's one of the things I think a lot of promoters are doing right now. A lot of, whether it's concerts, family shows, festivals, conventions and this stuff, is they're watching what everybody else is doing out there. I know we are. I think, Melanie brought it up, the most serious people are going to be there, right? That's the part of it that's kind of the tough situation, because, I always say this, and one of my comments recently has been, so I'm in California, we don't have an option here. Melanie, Dan, we don't have an option. We go outside, we have to wear a mask or we can get cited.
Right.
Simple as that.
Even outdoors, Andrew? I mean,
even outdoors in a public area.
Outdoors.
Now they may not ticket you outdoors, but if if you're walking to downtown to go have dinner with your wife, it's supposed to be on. They're even challenging now out here to have it with you if you're on a trail. You're out walking your dog on a trail. But I don't know how far they're going to get with it. But the one thing I kind of bring up is this, and this is what we're preparing ourselves, at least mentally, for from an event attendee perspective, right, is it's like anything in life. If you love something a lot, you do what you have to do to go love that product, right? And I think that, an analogy would be, baseball is going to start pretty soon, obviously without fans. But the minute that baseball allowed fans, if you're a huge, or if you're a San Antonio Spurs fan and they're going to go out and do this and they tell you have to wear a face mask to enter the building, that's just a decision you're going to have to make. That's a personal decision that you're going to make. I think what we don't know, and this is the uncertainty of it all, we just don't know what the psychology from month to month is going to be with everybody, and it's going to be different from market to market. The success we had in Des Moines last week doesn't mean that's going to translate to our show in Utah this week. The people in Utah are completely different people. We don't know. So I think that that's the really hard part. And that goes back to SEMA. It's like the show could go on, but you're right. You're not real sure what the people are going to be thinking, as we get to that time frame. It's a tough boat.
Well, I'll say this, and I think that's a good point, Andrew. And Rick, I don't know if you were at that show. I assume you probably were, but the 2001 SEMA show for me really stands out as an interesting one because
after 9/11.
It was only, yeah, exactly. It was 6 weeks after 9/11. It was the first major trade show in the country. I mean, for those of you that forget, they shut down all air travel nationwide for a couple of weeks. So it was the first major trade show. I think everybody was trying to figure out what it was going to be like. And to me personally, it was one of the best shows I've ever been to because all the tire kickers were gone. It was just people there to do business. And I mean, I think as a promoter and as a PR guy, I like having the big crowds. And if I'm doing, a Ringbrothers press conference or something like that, it's good to have 200 or 300 people around the booth when that's acceptable. But from a business perspective, it's pretty nice to just have people walk up to your booth and they want to do business and you want to do business and everybody can talk and you're not trying to get around the guy with the parrot on his shoulder who's having a wine cooler at 9 a.m. and,
So Dan, what do we do with our budget if SEMA does not happen and our owners aren't the type just to put it back in their pocket? What do we do with our budget for the rest of 2020 and into 2021 with the money that we would spend at SEMA?
So, well, what we're telling people is I think that there is an opportunity right now. There's more eyeballs on the internet than there ever have been before. There's more eyeballs on TV than there ever have been before. More streaming video than there ever has been before. And I can show you, one of our clients is Rolex, which is a very conservative company. And we report to the New York office, but Geneva in Switzerland is in charge of everything. And I mean, they weren't even on social a couple of years ago. So for them, digital media is a pretty new thing. And their version of SEMA is called Basel World, and it's in it's in Geneva, Switzerland every year, and it got canceled like everything else, and so that means so do all their product debuts. And what they did with their sister company Tudor, which is the more kind of accessible brand in their portfolio, is they did their first digital and virtual product unveil last week. They did it on July 1st. And it was a huge success. And this, again, maybe not revelatory for most companies, but for the watch industry, which is very conservative, this was a big deal. And what they did that was pretty interesting is normally, just like our industry, they'll have a new product at a trade show, and then you won't be able to buy that product in many cases for 5-6 months, you know, by the time it gets through production and distribution at the retail level and all that stuff. What they did that was really interesting is they sent out watches to all the watch and lifestyle media to test with an embargo, saying you can't post your story until after this date at this time. And then they sent press materials out to the media with the same thing. And then they have ambassadors that they sent, you know, content out to and said, please don't post about this, you know, influencers basically until this date and this time. And then they actually sent product to the retailers and said, hey, you can put this in your window, but not until this date at this time. So worldwide, they launched a new watch at, it was, I think, like 7 o'clock in the morning on July 1st. And it showed up on their website. It showed up on all their social channels. The influencers all started talking about it. The media were all in a race to post their stories reviewing it, and they all wanted to be first. So they all posted it at the same time exactly. And then all the retailers put the product in the windows at the brick and mortar stores and said, hey, we have this ready to buy right now. And it's sold out in 24 hours. So, you know, as a model, that's the first major brand I've seen do anything quite like this. And it worked really well. So we're watching that pretty closely and kind of benchmarking stuff like that. But I think that is, I mean, look, at the end of the day, I'm a look someone in the eye and shake their hand kind of person. I don't think there's a replacement for that. But unfortunately, in 2020, if for some reason we can't do that, I think that is a good alternative.
That's what we've been doing, though. We've been shifting our marketing dollars, since we can't go to the trade shows, to doing more what we can digitally. We had a videographer team down here a few weeks ago, and took advantage of that, and that stuff's going to all start dropping now. So we're just trying to move into that direction. I think a lot of what you mean, and I'm not trying to pat you on the back all the time here, Dan, but honestly, I think the videos that you've been doing, and I don't watch all that stuff, but I've been watching yours, and I think it's really valuable information. So I think people want it. And I'm one that doesn't pay attention to a lot, but I think that's what they need right now because they can't get out and do anything. So that's where we're same with SEMA. If we don't do SEMA, we're gonna redirect and go after what people are paying attention to is our screens, phone, whatever. They want to engage in some way somehow. And we'll do what we can by phone, and the rest is going to have to be as personal and real as we can, because we feel like a lot of our brand is who Mike and Jim are. So right. How do you convey that? I mean, they're not on the phones. That's the girls doing all that. So how do we get them out there? And they've been doing podcasts from Australia and South Africa. They've been doing all sorts of stuff that direction, and it's been great. For that reason, the guys love not traveling now. So we're trying to, take all this and get what we can out of it. And honestly, it's going to have to come down to marketing. Mm-hmm.
Good answer. Well, we're running out of time. So I have one last question. I know you guys have other stuff to do, and I appreciate you being so generous with your time. So the last question I have for anyone who feels like chiming in is, most of the people who get our newsletters and who will hopefully watch this video are small business owners. So knowing that things have been so turbulent, it's pretty hard. I mean, at least for me personally, it's pretty hard to steer the ship when you don't have a map. And right now we don't have a map. We're just trying to figure this thing out as we go. We don't know, at least in our state, they keep opening things and closing things, and we don't know what's going to happen next. And so it's really been an uncertain time, and we're just doing the best we can. What advice do you have for small business owners who are kind of going through similar things to what you are all going through to kind of get through this and try and make the best of this?
Be lean, be nimble. Mm-hmm.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'll tag on to Nancy and just say, do what you say you're going to do. And if you say you're going to do something with them, and I mean, that's advice that we've always tried to follow on that. But, if you can't get something out, be honest about it. And, we're trying to work week at a time now, just trying to solve the problems of that week. And, And that's the whole thing, rather than trying a year from now, because nobody knows what, like you said, Dan, things are changing daily almost. So we're trying to just handle things week to week, because you'll make yourself crazy trying to think what 6 months from now is going to be.
Right. Which is weird.
Yeah.
But I guess that's the new normal, I guess.
Especially for people like us that are used to having control over things, right? You know, I mean, you're used to being in a lot more control of things. That's very hard for me to deal with. It's really hard.
I can relate to that.
Yeah, I mean, that's all of us. You have a hard time. Nancy, I know it's that case with you because you're used to being in control.
Hardest, that's why.
I'd say one of the big keys though for everybody, whether you're small or big, is diversify.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think this is going away anytime soon. At the end of the day, you know, whether or not a vaccine is found and the reality of getting back to quote unquote normal, it's a ways off. And, you know, even with a vaccine, like I keep talking about the psychology of the consumer. And I think that that's a really important thing. We've been retrained a little bit as a society, especially in certain parts of the country. And to get back to normalcy is it's going to take a while. And I just think that diversification is really the key. I mean, diversifying your marketing efforts, like Nancy was talking about. You know, if you haven't been strong or haven't really gotten into the digital world as of late, start investing into that, right? You got to build it. And these things, I think you have to also be flexible. You know, there's a lot of companies in our industry that are not really digitally sound right now. And I think it's one of those deals where you can't just do digital today. You know, you can't call Dan and say, Dan, put a digital campaign together for me and expect it to come through overnight. It literally takes years for any kind of a marketing component to start getting, you know, taking ground. And so that'd be my best advice, is just, we all need to diversify. We need to start investing now, because the world's changed. No matter how we look at it right now, the world's changed and we're seeing it. And I think that that's kind of where we're coming from at Goodguys, is we're going to continue to diversify our marketing campaign, our marketing messages. We're going to continue to help develop new products that, you know, can support our partners and their initiatives. But diversification, I think that would be my advice for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, don't be complacent. Keep pushing, and like you said, come out with new product. And again, if you're worried about what's going to happen tomorrow, you're going to get left behind. You got to keep looking forward. And again, we always say we put everything on wheels, because you got to be willing to move at any time. But if you keep pushing, keep coming out with new products, we think you're going to be successful. So
don't go into a clamshell, right? Don't go into a clamshell. There's a lot of people in a fetal position right now.
Right.
It's like, don't do that. Keep pushing.
Yep. Yeah. Got to outwork everybody else, and then you'll be the last one standing.
Isn't that survival of the fittest? Is that what we're all talking about? The survival of the fittest.
Yeah, pretty much, right?
There's a reason that the weak animals get eaten in the herd, right? So. They chase down the weak ones. So don't be the weak.
I'm telling you, those masks are going to make you weaker. I'm telling you, you got to stay strong. Keep your immunity up.
Governor, you tell them not to. Don't tell them to fine us if we're walking outside.
Right.
Yeah, I feel
send
for
a
you
memo
guys.
to Newsom.
Yeah, you could call Newsom for us.
Yeah, will you, Nancy? I think you'd be persuasive.
Yeah. He'll love that.
They'd have to bleep a lot.
Yeah.
Well, this was really great.
Doing a show in Wisconsin is what you're saying. There you go.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I
It was
know
fun
we've taken
meeting
up
all
a lot
you
of your
guys.
time, but this was really fun. Thank you. Appreciate all your time.
Thanks for putting it together,
doing
Dan.
it, Dan.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
thank you.
You bet.
Hey,
All
really
right.
enjoyed seeing you guys.
Yeah, really
Take
good.
care, everybody.
Rick.
Miss y'all.
hang in there, guys.
Okay.
We'll see you at the
Bye.
show
Talk to you all
soon.
soon.